When government speaks of having rights, you push back against that and say, your rights, you have no rights, your powers come from me. And when those powers are abused, the people will take back those powers.
The power to tax is the power to destroy.
The bottom line here is that this demonstrates just the immense power that the Internal Revenue Service has over individual Americans and their ability to effectively exercise their First Amendment rights. One of the points that I raised today was that this is not a left or right, conservative or progressive issue, but an issue that impacts all of us for that very reason, that anybody can be targeted under this, and we should guard against that possibility.
Thank you. Your IRS is now targeting for political reasons. This is the worst I've seen it since Watergate, and I was alive watching the Watergate hearings when I was a kid. This is really bad, and I think people they've got to wake up.
Officials get away with this type of deception, this type of overbearing, out of control.
It's State of the Culture Update, May 22nd, 2013. We're here in Washington, where protests have been taking place this week at the IRS headquarters, where people who are protesting what the Obama administration has done are trying to get some traction here. They're trying to get people to listen to the fact that the IRS is really a fundamentally unjust organization, and it's been used incredibly unjustly over the past several years to keep people who love liberty and who love the idea of freedom from being able to organize politically.
Thing is, Will, this is not an isolated situation. Basically, this is exactly the sort of behavior that our current political regime not only allows, but even encourages. I mean, look, the purpose of government is to protect the life, liberty, and property of individuals. But the greatest danger to life, liberty, and property is the government. Therefore, we've got a constitution with checks and balances that's supposed to keep it in line. However, over the decades, political elites have presumed to tell us how to run our own lives and to use the government to force us to live and to do things the way they want. And so what's happened over the decades is those constitutional checks have been eroded. And even worse, even more fundamentally, the moral qualms that policymakers and administrators and so forth might have about pushing political power to its limits, those moral qualms have been eroded. And using the IRS against political enemies is just another example of this sort of a problem.
And this is a problem we see, that's been going on for a long time. The IRS has been doing this kind of shenanigans, well, really, ever since the income tax was created. There have been many scandals, but it's particularly shameful that it happens in this age when we have a president who talks about transparency. It's all about openness and freedom and democracy, and yet they end up using this tax system to cudgel people. And we see the fact that we've got essentially a broken system with unlimited power to Congress. Congress can write any regulation, any tax law it wants. It can take away anything of yours that it wants. It can do. And they can create monstrosities like Obamacare. Well, Ed, in Obamacare, they're essentially using the IRS's tax information to figure out whether you deserve a health subsidy or not, and then they're going to make you file taxes effectively like twice a year because you're going to have to do your taxes plus your Obamacare application. It's incredible.
Look, I mean, you got to keep two things in mind. First thing is that today, raw political power more and more determines who gets what, when, why, and how. It's raw political power. Therefore, more and more people simply do anything they can get away with politically. The second thing to understand is that what is needed is a global change. It's not just, well, we've got to tweak the IRS a little bit, or restrict its powers. We have to have a moral revolution in which people stand up and say, my life is mine. I'm going to live it as I see fit. I'm going to take responsibility for my life, and I am not going to tolerate political hacks getting in my way. I mean, that's the kind of moral revolution you need if you really want to have a political revolution, in favor of liberty.
I mean, ultimately, people are protesting the IRS and what it's done, but until they're ready to say, I take responsibility for my life, I'm willing to live as an individual and be responsible. I don't need this intrusive, complex, crony capitalist government intruding in my life and running it. We're going to be stuck with the same system. So the question is, are people really ready to change fundamentally the system? And they won't be until they accept the moral imperative of living for their own lives.
Yeah, and this is the time to push that idea, to push the revolution, now that people realize exactly the kind of abuses that the system has created.
Well, what do you all think of that? Share your ideas with us in the comments section, and come back for more State of the Culture updates.
It's all about, too much power. And anybody who's still naive enough to think that's 18,000 more IRS agents, with Obamacare, and if you still think that's a good idea, something's wrong with you, or you just don't care, or whatever. But we care enough for everybody, and it's great to have so many people out here just saying, we're not going to take it anymore. It's time to say, stop. We're just people out here just, again, exercising our rights, and how dare they attack us just for not agreeing with Obama. So I'm excited that I have the time to be here. So where else am I going to be? It's a great day.